The morning sun peeked through the faded blue curtains of Lily's apartment, casting a warm glow on her sleeping face. The alarm clock buzzed for the third time, and she finally reached out to silence it. 5:30 a.m. Another day, another double shift. Lily rolled out of bed, her feet finding the cold wooden floor. The apartment was small, just a bedroom, a tiny bathroom, and a kitchen that doubled as a living room. But it was hers, even if the rent ate up most of her paycheck. She shuffled to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face to chase away the sleepiness. The mirror revealed tired eyes, but Lily managed to smile anyway. "Today will be better," she whispered to herself. It was the same thing she said every morning. The coffee maker gurgled in the kitchen as Lily slipped into her blue waitress uniform. 6 years at Joe's Diner had made the routine second nature. She smoothed down the wrinkles as best she could. No time to iron today. Her textbook on business management sat open on the kitchen counter, right where she'd left it last night when sleep had finally won out over studying. At 28, Lily wasn't where she thought she'd be. Growing up, she had big dreams, college, a career, maybe even her own business someday. Life had other plans. Her dad got sick during her first year of community college. Medical bills piled up. Then he was gone, and so were her savings. The diner job was supposed to be temporary, just until she got back on her feet. Now, 6 years later, she was still taking orders and serving coffee, still trying to finish that degree one night class at a time. She grabbed her coffee, poured it into a travel mug, and stuffed her textbook into her bag. Maybe she could get some reading done during her break. The night before, she'd been up until 1 a.m. working on an assignment, but it wasn't quite finished. The deadline was tomorrow. Outside, the autumn air was crisp. Lily pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders as she walked to the bus stop. She could have used the car today, an old Honda that belonged to her dad, but gas was expensive and the check engine light had been on for weeks. That was a problem for another day, when her tip jar held more than just coins. The bus arrived 5 minutes late, as usual. Lily slid into an empty seat and leaned her head against the window. The city was just waking up. Shop owners opening their doors, dog walkers on their morning routes, construction workers heading to their sites. Everyone had somewhere to be, something to do, dreams to chase. Lily opened her phone to check her bank account. The number stared back at her, unforgiving. Rent was due in 3 days, and she was still short by $120. Her electricity bill sat unpaid, marked with a red final notice. And then there was the tuition payment for next semester. She closed the app and took a deep breath. One day at a time. Today's double shift would help. And maybe Mr. Peterson would leave his usual generous tip. The elderly regular always ordered the same thing, black coffee and an English muffin with jam, and always told her to keep the change from his 20. Joe's Diner came into view as the bus rounded the corner. It wasn't much to look at from the outside, a single-story building with a neon sign that flickered even in daylight. But inside it was warm and familiar. The smell of bacon and coffee, the sound of the bell above the door, the chatter of regulars who'd been coming for years. "Morning, Lily," Joe called from behind the counter as she walked in. He was flipping pancakes, his white apron already splattered with batter. At 62, Joe had owned the diner for nearly 4 decades. The place was his life, and he ran it with the care of someone tending a garden. "Morning, Joe," Lily replied, hanging her jacket on the hook in the back room. "How's it looking today?" "Slow start, but the breakfast crowd should be rolling in soon." Joe slid a plate of pancakes across the counter to Hank, their cook. "Your night class go okay yesterday?" Lily tied her apron around her waist. "Yeah, it was fine. Got an assignment due tomorrow, though." Joe nodded. "You'll get it done." "You always do." "Smartest waitress I've ever had." The compliment made Lily smile despite her exhaustion. Joe had been nothing but supportive of her efforts to finish school. He'd even adjusted her schedule more than once to accommodate her classes. The morning passed in a blur of coffee refills, breakfast orders, and small talk with the regulars. By 11 a.m., Lily's feet were already aching. But the breakfast rush was over, at least. The lunch crowd wouldn't arrive for another hour or so. She took the opportunity to wipe down tables and refill salt and pepper shakers. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her roommate from 2 years ago, Tina. "Hey girl, how's it going? Dave and I are having some people over Friday night. You should come. Been too long since we hung out." Lily smiled at the message. She missed Tina, who had moved in with her boyfriend last year, But a night out meant money spent, money she didn't have. Thanks for the invite. Super busy with work and school, though. Rain check? She sent the message knowing it was the same excuse she'd used the last 3 times. Tina would understand. She always did. The bell above the door jingled, and Lily looked up to see a woman enter. She was older, maybe in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a floral dress with a cardigan that had seen better days. Her handbag, clutched tightly against her chest, looked worn around the edges. Lily put her phone away and grabbed a menu. "Hi there," she said with a smile. "Just one today?" The woman nodded, her eyes taking in the diner. "Yes, just me." Her voice was soft, a bit shaky. "How about a booth by the window?" Lily suggested. "The view's not much, but the sun feels nice this time of day." The woman followed her to the booth and settled in, placing her handbag on the seat beside her. "Thank you, dear." "This is lovely." Lily handed her the menu. "Can I get you something to drink to start?" "Just water, please. With lemon if you have it. Coming right up." Lily headed to the drink station. From the corner of her eye, she saw the woman open her handbag and pull out a small coin purse. She began counting coins, mouthing the numbers to herself as she went. Lily brought the water with lemon and set it down gently. "Take your time with the menu. Our lunch specials are on the back page." The woman looked up from her coins. "What's the most affordable meal you have, dear?" Something in the woman's eyes, a mixture of pride and worry, struck Lily. She recognized that look. She'd seen it in her father's eyes during those final months when the medical bills kept coming and the money kept going. "Our soup of the day is vegetable beef," Lily said. "It comes with a bread roll and it's $5.99. It's really good. Hank makes it from scratch." Relief flashed across the woman's face. "That sounds perfect." As Lily wrote down the order, she noticed the woman's hands. They were slender, with prominent veins and slightly swollen knuckles. Hands that had worked hard for many years. A simple gold wedding band, worn thin with time, circled her left ring finger. "I'll get that order in for you right away," Lily said. In the kitchen, she hung up the order slip. "Soup's up, Hank." The cook nodded without looking up from the grill, where he was preparing a burger for another customer. Lily used the quiet moment to pull out her textbook. She had about 10 minutes before the lunch crowd would start arriving. She flipped to where she'd left off, a chapter on financial management. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her eyes skimmed the pages, but her mind kept drifting to the elderly woman by the window. There was something about her that reminded Lily of her grandmother. The same quiet dignity, the careful way she handled her money. The lunch rush came and went. Lily moved between tables with practiced efficiency, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks. Her feet ached and her back protested, but she kept the smile on her face. Tips were decent today. Maybe, just maybe, she'd make enough to cover the rent without having to dip into her emergency fund again. The elderly woman remained at her booth long after finishing her soup. She sipped her water slowly, gazing out the window at people passing by. Occasionally, she would reach into her handbag and touch the coin purse as if reassuring herself it was still there. When the rush finally slowed, Lily approached her table. "Can I get you anything else? Perhaps some dessert? Our apple pie is fresh today." The woman shook her head with a small smile. "No, thank you, dear. Just the check when you have a moment." Lily nodded and went to print out the check, $5.99 plus tax, $7.31. She returned to the table and placed the check down gently. "No rush. Take your time." The woman opened her coin purse again and began counting more deliberately this time. Quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies formed small piles on the table. Her fingers moved slowly, and Lily noticed they trembled slightly. The woman frowned, counted again, rearranged the piles. Lily busied herself wiping down a nearby table, giving the woman privacy but staying close enough to help if needed. She pretended not to notice when the woman's shoulders slumped slightly, or when she dug deeper into her purse, searching for coins that weren't there. After a few minutes, the woman looked up, her eyes finding Lily's. There was embarrassment there, and something else. A quiet desperation that made Lily's heart ache. "I seem to be a bit short," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I had enough, but—" She trailed off, looking down at her coins. Lily approached the table and smiled warmly. "Don't worry about it. The soup is on the house today." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh, I couldn't." We do this sometimes for our first-time customers, Lily said smoothly. Joe likes to welcome new folks to the diner. Hopefully you'll come back and see us again. It was a small lie, but a kind one. Joe wouldn't mind. And if he did, Lily would pay for the soup herself. Relief and gratitude washed over the woman's face. That's very kind. Thank you, Lily smiled. My pleasure. Would you like a to-go cup for your water? The woman nodded, gathering her coins back into the purse. As Lily walked away to get the cup, she glanced back and saw the woman dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. In that moment, standing in the middle of the diner she'd worked at for 6 years, surrounded by the familiar sounds and smells, Lily felt something shift inside her. The double shifts, the late-night studying, the constant worry about money. It all seemed a little lighter somehow. She thought about her father, about how he'd taught her that kindness matters more than money. And she knew without a doubt that he would be proud of her today. The elderly woman carefully tucked her coin purse back into her handbag, her hands steadier now. The worry lines on her face had softened, replaced by a gentle smile that reached her eyes. As Lily returned with the to-go cup of water, the woman looked up at her. I'm Helen, she said, her voice stronger than before. Helen Thornton. Nice to meet you, Helen. I'm Lily. She placed the water on the table. Are you from around here? Helen shook her head. Just passing through. I visit this town once a year. She hesitated, then added, My Raymond is buried in the cemetery on Oak Hill. Today's our anniversary. Lily's heart tightened. I'm sorry for your loss. 53 years we were married, Helen said, her eyes distant with memory. He was a good man, hardworking, kind. She smiled up at Lily. He would have liked you. A call from another table pulled Lily's attention. Excuse me a moment, she said, touching Helen's shoulder lightly before moving to help another customer. As the afternoon wore on, the diner emptied again. Helen remained at her window seat, occasionally sipping her water. Lily checked on her between tasks and they exchanged small bits of conversation. Helen had been a teacher, 4th grade, for nearly 40 years. She and Raymond had 2 children and 5 grandchildren, all living in different states now. They want me to move closer to them, Helen confided during one of Lily's check-ins. My son Robert, especially. He has a big house in the city, plenty of room, he says. But I'm not ready to leave our home yet. Lily nodded, understanding the pull of familiar places. Sometimes home is worth holding on to, even when it's hard. Around 4 o'clock, Helen finally gathered her things to leave. Lily was at the register when Helen approached, a determined look on her face. I want you to have this, Helen said, pressing a few coins into Lily's palm. For your kindness, Lily looked down. 87 cents. Probably all Helen had left. Please, Helen insisted. My mother taught me to never leave a debt unpaid. It's not much, but the weight of those coins in Lily's hand felt heavier than they should. She thought about refusing, about telling Helen to keep her money. But something in the older woman's expression, a fierce pride despite her circumstances, stopped her. Thank you, Lily said instead, closing her fingers around the coins. Will you be okay getting home? Oh yes, Helen said. I'm staying at the Pine View Motel just down the road. The bus stops right outside. Lily watched as Helen made her way to the door, her steps slow but deliberate. Just before leaving, Helen turned back and gave a small wave. The bell jingled as the door closed behind her. For several moments, Lily stood at the register, the coins warm in her hand. Then she reached into her wallet, pulled out her debit card, and rang up the soup. What are you doing? Joe asked, coming up beside her. I thought you told that lady it was on the house. I did, Lily said, punching in her pin, but I want to pay for it. Joe studied her face. You sure? I don't mind covering one soup. I'm sure. The register beeped, confirming the transaction. $7.31, nearly an hour's worth of tips. But Lily felt no regret. Joe squeezed her shoulder. You're good people, Lily, just like your old man was. The rest of Lily's shift passed quickly. The dinner crowd kept her busy, running between tables, refilling coffee cups, taking orders. By 8 o'clock, her feet were throbbing and her back ached, but her tip jar was fuller than usual. A businessman had left her a $20 on a $30 check, and a family of 4 had added an extra $10 with a note that said, Great service. As she counted out her tips at the end of the night, Lily realized she'd made enough to cover the rest of her rent. Maybe she could even pay part of the electric bill. The thought lifted some of the weight she'd been carrying. "You heading to class?" Joe asked as Lily hung up her apron. She nodded, checking her watch. "Yeah, it starts at 9. I should make it if I hurry." "Take some food," Joe insisted, packing a container with the day's leftover mac and cheese. "Can't study on an empty stomach?" Lily accepted the food with a grateful smile. "Thanks, Joe. See you tomorrow." The night air had grown colder. Lily zipped her jacket up to her chin as she walked to the bus stop. The streets were quieter now, most shops closed, windows darkened. A few people hurried past, heads down against the chill. The campus was a 20-minute bus ride away. Lily used the time to review her notes for class, trying to ignore the heaviness of her eyelids. The long day was catching up with her, but she couldn't skip class, not when she was so close to finishing her degree. Just one more semester after this one. The business management class was held in a small classroom on the second floor of the economics building. Lily slipped in just as Professor Chen was setting up his presentation. A few other students nodded to her as she took her usual seat near the back. Most of her classmates were younger, fresh out of high school or in their early 20s. They had different lives, parents who helped with tuition, part-time jobs rather than full-time ones, apartments shared with friends instead of lived in alone. Sometimes Lily felt the gap between them, but in class, focusing on the material, those differences faded. Tonight's lecture was on ethical business practices and community investment. Professor Chen talked about how businesses could thrive while also giving back. "Success isn't just about profit margins," he said, pacing in front of the whiteboard. "It's about creating value for your customers, your employees, your community." Lily thought about Joe, who had owned his diner for nearly 40 years. He wasn't rich, but he paid his staff well, remembered his customers' names, and sometimes gave free meals to those who needed them. Was that the kind of success Professor Chen meant? After class, Professor Chen called Lily aside. "Your midterm paper was excellent," he said. "Your analysis of small business sustainability and changing economic landscapes showed real insight." Lily felt a flush of pride. "Thank you, sir." "Have you thought about what you'll do after graduation?" he asked. "With your experience and your understanding of practical business applications, you have a lot to offer." The question caught Lily off guard. She'd been so focused on finishing her degree that she'd given little thought to what came after. "I'm not sure yet," she admitted. "I'd like to manage my own business someday, but that's a long way off." Professor Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Well, when you're ready to start looking, let me know. I have connections with several local businesses that value employees with real-world experience." The conversation left Lily feeling both excited and nervous. Graduation was still months away, but suddenly it felt more real. A step closer to the life she'd put on hold 6 years ago. The bus ride home was quiet, the vehicle nearly empty at this late hour. Lily leaned her head against the window, watching the city lights blur past. She thought about Helen, about the coins pressed into her palm, about dignity and kindness and the strange connections that form between people, even briefly. It was after 11 when Lily finally unlocked her apartment door. The space was dark and chilly. She kept the thermostat low to save on heating. She flipped on a lamp, casting soft light across the small room. On the kitchen counter, her bills were stacked in a neat pile, organized by due date. Lily added her day's tips to her rent envelope. Just one more shift and she'd have the full amount. The electric bill would have to wait until next week, but they wouldn't shut it off for another 10 days. She'd make it work. She always did. Too tired to eat, Lily left Joe's mac and cheese in the refrigerator for tomorrow's breakfast. She kicked off her shoes and sank onto her bed without changing, just for a moment's rest before washing up. The day's events played through her mind. The morning rush, the regular customers, Helen counting her coins, the proud look in her eyes as she insisted on giving Lily 87 cents. Strange how such a small interaction could stick with her. Lily had served hundreds of customers over the years, exchanged thousands of words, smiles, thank yous. Most faded from memory by the next day, but something about Helen felt different. Perhaps it was the quiet dignity, the refusal to accept charity without giving something in return. Lily's eyes grew heavier. Just 5 minutes, she told herself. 5 minutes of rest, then she'd get up, wash her face, set her alarm for tomorrow. As sleep began to claim her, Helen's face drifted through her mind, and then her father's. Different people from different times, but connected by the same quiet strength, the same resilience in the face of hardship. The last thing Lily remembered before falling asleep was the weight of those coins in her hand, and the strange certainty that somehow they were worth far more than 87 cents. Outside her window, the city continued its nighttime rhythm. Traffic lights changed from red to green to yellow and back again. Night shift workers made their way to jobs while others returned home. And somewhere in a motel room down the road, an elderly woman named Helen sat on the edge of her bed, thinking about a kind waitress who had preserved her dignity with a simple lie about free soup. Neither woman could have guessed how their brief encounter would change both their lives. By this time tomorrow, Lily woke with a jolt, the morning sun already streaming through her window. She was still fully dressed, lying on top of her blankets. Her alarm clock flashed 7:12 a.m. in angry red digits. No, 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 she muttered, scrambling to her feet. She was supposed to be at the diner at 7. Joe was understanding, but being late wasn't like her. She grabbed her phone and called the diner, her heart racing. Joe picked up on the third ring. Joe's Diner, how can I help you? Joe, it's Lily, I'm so sorry. I fell asleep in my clothes last night and forgot to set my alarm. I'll be there as soon as I can. There was a pause, then Joe's voice came through, unusually gentle. Don't worry about it, kid. Take the day off, Lily frowned. What? No, I need the hours. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Lily, Joe said firmly, you've been working doubles all week. You're exhausted. I can see it. Take the day, rest, come back tomorrow fresh. But that's an order from your boss, Joe said, but she could hear the smile in his voice. Besides, you covered for me last month when my back went out. Consider us even. After a brief argument that Lily knew she couldn't win, she finally agreed. Thanks, Joe. I'll see you tomorrow. She ended the call and stood in the middle of her apartment, suddenly unsure what to do with an unexpected day off. The last time she'd had a free weekday was 3 months ago when she'd had the flu. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she'd skipped dinner the night before. The mac and cheese Joe had sent home with her was still in the refrigerator. She popped it into the microwave and went to the bathroom to splash water on her face. The mirror revealed yesterday's mascara smudged under her eyes. Her uniform was wrinkled from being slept in. With a sigh, Lily stripped it off and stepped into the shower. The hot water was a luxury she rarely allowed herself. Usually, she took quick, lukewarm showers to save on the water bill. But today, she let the warmth soak into her tired muscles, washing away the remnants of yesterday's double shift. Dressed in a comfortable pair of jeans and an old t-shirt, her hair wrapped in a towel, Lily sat at her small kitchen table with the reheated mac and cheese. It wasn't a typical breakfast, but it tasted like heaven after missing dinner. As she ate, she made a mental list of things she could do with her unexpected free time. Finish her business assignment, do laundry, go to the grocery store, her cupboards were looking pretty bare. Call her sister, who had left 2 voicemails last week that Lily hadn't had time to return. A loud knock at the door interrupted her planning. Lily froze, fork halfway to her mouth. She wasn't expecting anyone. Solicitors rarely made it past the building's security door, and she didn't know her neighbors well enough for casual drop-ins. Another knock, more insistent this time. Lily set down her fork and went to the door, peering through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, tall, well-dressed, maybe in his 60s. His gray hair was neatly combed, and he wore an expensive-looking overcoat. She didn't recognize him. Who is it? She called through the door. Robert Thornton, the man replied. His voice was deep and confident. I'm looking for Lily Williams, Lily frowned. The name Thornton tickled something in her memory, but she couldn't place it. How did this stranger know her full name? What's this regarding? She asked, still not opening the door. It's about my mother, Helen Thornton. You met her yesterday at Joe's Diner. Helen, the elderly woman with the coin purse. Thornton, of course. She had introduced herself, hadn't she? Helen Thornton. But how did her son know where Lily lived? Curiosity won out over caution. Lily unlocked the door but kept the chain on, opening it just enough to get a better look at her visitor. Robert Thornton looked even more out of place in the dingy hallway of her apartment building than she'd initially thought. His coat was clearly tailored, his leather shoes polished to a shine. A gold watch glinted on his wrist. How did you find me? Lily asked bluntly. A slight smile crossed his face. May I come in? I promise I'll explain everything. Lily hesitated, then nodded. She closed the door to remove the chain, then opened it fully. "Sorry about the mess," she said automatically as he stepped inside. "I wasn't expecting visitors." Robert glanced around her small apartment, taking in the textbooks stacked on the coffee table, the faded couch, the tiny kitchen where her half-eaten breakfast sat. If he was judging her modest living conditions, his face didn't show it. "Please have a seat," Lily offered, gesturing to the couch. She quickly gathered her towel from her wet hair, feeling suddenly self-conscious. Robert sat down, unbuttoning his coat. "I should start by thanking you for your kindness to my mother yesterday." Lily leaned against the kitchen counter, keeping some distance between them. "It was nothing, really. Your mother seems like a lovely woman." "She is," Robert agreed. "And very proud." "Too proud to accept help most of the time, even from her own son." He smiled ruefully. "Which is why what you did meant so much to her." Lily shook her head, confused. "I don't understand. All I did was give her a free bowl of soup. She didn't mention that she'd paid for it herself." "My mother told me what happened," Robert said. "She knew the soup wasn't really free. She knew you paid for it yourself." Heat crept into Lily's cheeks. "How did she know that?" "Helen Thornton taught 4th grade for 40 years, Robert said with a chuckle. "She can spot a white lie a mile away, especially one told out of kindness." Lily smiled despite her confusion. "That still doesn't explain how you found me or why you're here." Robert reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to Lily. "I'm the CEO of Thornton Developments. We build and manage commercial properties across 3 states. Lily took the card, running her thumb over the embossed logo, Thornton Developments. She'd seen that name before, on the new office building downtown, on billboards advertising luxury apartments. "After my mother left the diner," Robert continued, "she called me. She was quite emotional. She told me about a kind waitress named Lily, who had saved her from embarrassment, who had preserved her dignity when she came up short for her meal." Lily looked down at the card in her hands. "I still don't understand how you found my address." Robert had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I asked Joe. I went to the diner this morning, explained who I was, what had happened. He was reluctant at first, but when I told him why I wanted to speak with you," he trailed off. "Well, he finally gave me your address." Lily made a mental note to have a word with Joe about giving out her personal information, even with the best intentions. "I'm sorry for showing up unannounced," Robert said, "but I wanted to thank you in person." "There's really no need to thank me," Lily insisted. "Anyone would have done the same." Robert's expression turned serious. "No, Lily, not anyone would have done what you did. My mother told me about your conversation, about how you're working double shifts going to school at night. She could see how tired you were. Yet you still chose to help a stranger, even at a cost to yourself." Lily didn't know what to say. She looked around her small apartment, at the bills on the counter, at her worn furniture. She thought about her bank account, barely covering her rent, about the electric bill still unpaid. $7.31 hadn't seemed like much to give up at the time. "Why are you really here, Mr. Thornton?" she asked finally. Robert smiled. "Please call me Robert." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I'm here because I have a proposition for you." "A proposition?" "A job offer, to be more precise." Lily blinked, certain she had misheard him. "A job offer? You don't even know me." "I know enough," Robert said confidently. "I know you're studying business management. Joe mentioned you're 1 semester away from your degree. I know you're hardworking. Double shifts at the diner while taking night classes shows that. And I know you have something many people lack these days. Empathy, integrity, kindness." Lily laughed nervously. "Those aren't exactly skills you can put on a resume. Actually, they're exactly the skills I'm looking for." Robert's voice was earnest now. "The Thornton Foundation is the charitable arm of my company. We fund community programs, scholarships, small business initiatives. We've been looking for someone to help manage our community relations. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who has empathy for people in difficult situations." Lily's mind raced. Was this real? A job offer from a wealthy businessman who had tracked her down because she'd paid for his mother's soup? It sounded too strange to be true, like something from a movie. "This is unexpected," she said carefully. Robert nodded. "I understand your hesitation. It's not a conventional job interview, that's for sure." He smiled. "Look, I'm not offering you the job right this minute. I'd like you to come to my office tomorrow. We can talk more about the position, the salary, the benefits. You can meet the team. Then you can decide if it's something you're interested in. And if I'm not qualified? From what Joe tells me about your work ethic and what my mother observed about your character, I'm not concerned about qualifications. The technical aspects of the job can be learned. The kind of compassion you showed my mother can't be taught. A car horn honked outside, breaking the moment of silence that had fallen between them. Lily realized she was still clutching Robert's business card, her knuckles white. Will you at least think about it? Robert asked, standing up. Come to the office tomorrow? No pressure. Just a conversation. Lily looked up at him, still trying to process everything that had happened in the last 15 minutes. What time? Is 10 o'clock good for you? She nodded, feeling as though she was moving through a dream. 10 is fine. I don't have class until evening. Robert smiled, buttoning his coat. Excellent. The address is on the card. Just tell the receptionist you're there to see me. He moved toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Lily? My mother wanted you to have this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small tissue-wrapped package. She insisted. Lily took it, feeling the weight in her palm. Thank you. After Robert left, Lily stood in the middle of her apartment, the small package in one hand, his business card in the other. Slowly, she unwrapped the tissue paper. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a small soup bowl. A note written in shaky handwriting accompanied it. Sometimes the smallest kindnesses create the biggest ripples. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible, Helen. Lily sank onto her couch, the bracelet cool against her skin. Through her open window, she could hear the sounds of the city. Car horns, distant voices, the rhythm of everyday life continuing as usual. But for Lily, everything had shifted, all because of a bowl of soup that cost $7.31. Sleep didn't come easily to Lily that night. She tossed and turned, her mind replaying the strange events of the day. Robert Thornton's business card sat on her nightstand, the embossed letters catching the moonlight that filtered through her window. Next to it lay Helen's bracelet, the tiny soup bowl charm, a reminder that sometimes life takes unexpected turns. Morning arrived with weak sunlight struggling through cloud cover. Lily stood in front of her closet, suddenly aware that she owned nothing appropriate for a meeting with a CEO. Her wardrobe consisted mainly of jeans, t-shirts, and her diner uniform. There was one dress she'd worn to her father's funeral, and a blouse she'd bought for class presentations, but nothing that screamed professional. After trying on several combinations, she settled on black pants that weren't jeans, though they were close. Her presentation blouse and a cardigan that had seen better days but was clean and without holes. She pulled her hair back into a neat ponytail and applied minimal makeup, just enough to look put together. As she caught the bus downtown, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this was all some elaborate prank. Why would a wealthy businessman offer her a job based solely on the fact that she'd paid for his mother's soup? It didn't make sense. The Thornton Developments building stood 20 stories high in the heart of downtown, its glass exterior reflecting the cloudy sky. Lily had passed it many times but had never been inside. Now standing in front of the revolving doors, she felt small and out of place. You can do this, she whispered to herself, clutching her worn purse a little tighter. It's just a conversation. The lobby was all marble and polished wood with a security desk and turnstiles guarding the elevator bank. A young receptionist with perfectly styled hair looked up as Lily approached. Good morning. How can I help you? Her voice was as polished as the marble floor. I'm here to see Robert Thornton, Lily said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. My name is Lily Williams. The receptionist's expression shifted subtly, from professional detachment to curious interest. Oh, Ms. Williams, Mr. Thornton mentioned you would be coming. She picked up her phone, pressed a button, and spoke quietly. Mr. Thornton, Lily Williams is here to see you. After a pause, she nodded and hung up. He'll be right down to get you. Down? Lily repeated, surprised. Isn't his office upstairs? The receptionist smiled. The executive offices are on the top floor, yes, but Mr. Thornton likes to greet special visitors personally. Special visitors. The words made Lily even more nervous. She sat on a sleek leather bench, her hands folded in her lap, acutely aware of how her worn shoes contrasted with the gleaming floor. Less than 2 minutes later, the elevator doors opened and Robert Thornton strode out. Today he wore a crisp navy suit that probably cost more than Lily made in 2 months at the diner. Despite his obvious wealth and status, There was something approachable about him. Perhaps the smile lines around his eyes or the way he immediately extended his hand when he saw her. Lily. Thank you for coming. His handshake was firm but not overpowering. Let's go upstairs and I can tell you more about what we do here. The elevator shot up so smoothly and quickly that Lily's stomach dropped. When the doors opened on the 20th floor, she found herself in a space unlike any office she'd seen before. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating an open workspace with clusters of desks, comfortable seating areas, and glass-walled conference rooms. Plants thrived in large pots, adding life and color to the modern design. This is our main workspace, Robert explained as he led her through. We believe in collaboration and accessibility, so nobody has a traditional office, not even me. We do have meeting rooms for privacy when needed. Staff members looked up from their work as they passed, many nodding or smiling at Robert. Lily noticed the diversity of the team, people of different ages, backgrounds, styles of dress. It wasn't what she had expected from a corporate office. Robert guided her to a corner conference room with stunning views of the city and the river beyond. A woman about Lily's age was already inside, arranging coffee and pastries on a small table. This is Diane, our community programs director, Robert said. Diane, this is Lily Williams. Diane smiled warmly and extended her hand. I've heard so much about you already. It's lovely to meet you. Lily shook her hand, bewildered. You've heard about me? The famous soup incident? Absolutely. Diane's eyes crinkled when she smiled. We've all heard about it. The boss has been talking about nothing else since yesterday. Please sit down, Robert said, gesturing to the comfortable chairs around the table. Coffee? Lily nodded and Diane poured her a cup. For a moment, the room was quiet as they settled in. Then Robert leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. Before we discuss the job opportunity, I think I owe you a bit more explanation about my mother and why your kindness affected her so deeply. Lily wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup. I've been wondering about that. Don't get me wrong, I'm flattered, but this all seems excessive for what I did. Robert nodded thoughtfully. It would seem that way, I suppose. But there's more to the story. He paused, collecting his thoughts. My father died 5 years ago. They were married for over 50 years. Childhood sweethearts, really. His death hit Mom hard. She was lost without him. I'm sorry, Lily said quietly. Thank you. Dad left her well provided for. Between his life insurance, their savings, and the inheritance she receives from my company dividends, Mom has more money than she could spend in her lifetime. He smiled sadly. But grief does strange things to people. After Dad died, Mom started taking these solo trips to visit his grave. She didn't tell me at first. I only found out when her neighbor called me, worried because Mom had disappeared for 2 days. Diane handed Lily a pastry on a small plate. Lily took it with a grateful nod, though her appetite had vanished. When I confronted her, Robert continued, Mom explained that she needed these private pilgrimages, these moments alone with Dad. And she had this unusual ritual. She would take only cash with her, only what she thought she would need. No credit cards, no checkbook. Just like when they were first married and had to budget carefully. That's why she was counting coins at the diner, Lily realized. Exactly. Mom said it helped her feel connected to those early days with Dad. Before success, before wealth changed their lives. She said those were the happiest times when they had nothing but each other. Robert's voice grew softer. The thing is, Mom has never been good with money. Dad always handled their finances. So when she tries to budget for these trips, she often miscalculates. Couldn't you just give her extra cash? Lily asked. Or convince her to key a credit card for emergencies? Robert laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've tried, many times. But Mom is stubborn. She insists on doing things her way. She says these trips are about remembering, about feeling what it was like when they were young and struggling. He sighed. Usually she manages, but occasionally she comes up short, Lily finished for him. Yes, and when that happens, she either goes without or... He hesitated. Well, she told me about other times. A gas station attendant who let her fill her tank and pay what she could. A hotel clerk who found a discount to apply to her bill. Small kindnesses from strangers that she never forgot. Lily thought about Helen carefully counting her coins, the trembling hands, the flash of embarrassment in her eyes. What made this time different? She asked. Why track me down now? Robert and Diane exchanged a glance before Robert answered. Mom is moving in with me next month. Her health isn't what it was, and she's finally agreed it's time. This trip to visit Dad's grave was her last solo journey. That's why your kindness hit her so hard. It was like a bookend to all those years of strangers helping her maintain this connection to Dad. Lily sat back in her chair, absorbing this information. I understand now. But I still don't understand the job offer. Surely you don't offer positions to everyone who's kind to your mother. Diane laughed softly. No, that would be an unusual hiring practice, Robert smiled. When Mom called me sobbing about your kindness, I was curious. I went to the diner early yesterday morning and spoke with Joe. I told him what had happened, and he told me about you. About your work ethic, your studies, your struggles since your father passed away. He spoke very highly of you. Joe talks too much, Lily muttered, but there was no heat in her words. The timing was coincidental, Robert continued. We've been looking for someone to join our community relations team for months, someone with both business knowledge and real-world perspective. When Joe mentioned you were studying business management and working double shifts to pay for school, something clicked. Diane nodded. We need someone who understands struggle firsthand. Many of our community programs serve people who are working hard but still falling short. Your experience gives you insight that many corporate employees simply don't have. The job would involve coordinating with local organizations, helping allocate funds from our foundation, and developing new programs to serve the community, Robert explained. The salary is $60,000 a year to start with full benefits, and we would cover the cost of your final semester. Lily nearly choked on her coffee. $60,000. She currently made less than $20,000 at the diner, including tips. The amount Robert mentioned so casually would completely transform her life. I don't know what to say, she stammered. You don't have to decide right now, Robert said gently. Take some time to think about it. Talk to Joe, he seemed very invested in your future. Visit our foundation website. Learn more about what we do. The position would start part-time until you finish your degree, then transition to full-time after graduation. Diane handed Lily a folder. All the details are in here. Job description, benefits package, information about our foundation work. Lily took the folder, her hands slightly shaking. The weight of possibility it represented was overwhelming. No more double shifts. No more choosing between textbooks and electricity bills. No more tiny apartment with unreliable heat. This is a lot to process, she admitted. Of course it is, Robert agreed. Take all the time you need. This isn't charity, Lily. This is recognition of your potential. The kindness you showed my mother simply brought you to our attention. As they stood to leave the conference room, Robert added one more thing. Oh, and Mom would like to meet with you again. Properly this time. She's invited you to dinner at my home this weekend if you're available. Lily clutched the folder to her chest, feeling as though she had stepped into someone else's life. I'd like that, she said softly. Please tell her I'll be there. As Robert walked her back to the elevator, Lily caught glimpses of people working together, talking animatedly, smiling. She tried to picture herself among them, tried to imagine a life where she wasn't constantly exhausted, constantly worried about money. Thank you for coming today, Robert said as the elevator doors opened. And Lily, whatever you decide about the job, my mother and I will always be grateful for what you did. Sometimes the smallest actions reveal the truest character. The elevator doors closed and Lily descended back to the ground floor, the folder in her hands containing a future she had never dared to imagine, all because she had paid for a bowl of soup. Lily sat at her kitchen table, the job offer folder open before her, its contents spread out like a map to a different life. The numbers on the salary page seemed unreal, triple what she made at the diner. The benefits package included health insurance better than anything she'd ever had. And there on the last page was a tuition assistance form already filled out with her name. She'd been staring at these papers for 2 days now, trying to convince herself this wasn't a dream or an elaborate prank. She'd called her sister, who had squealed with excitement and told her she'd be crazy not to take the job. She'd even reached out to Professor Chen, who had looked up Thornton Developments online during their call, and confirmed it was a reputable company with an excellent community foundation. It's an incredible opportunity, Lily, he had said. Their foundation work is impressive. You'd be perfect for a role like this. Yet something held her back, a nagging worry that this was all happening too fast, that she hadn't earned it, that she wasn't qualified. What if she failed? What if they realized she wasn't who they thought she was? The diner had been her safe place for 6 years. Joe was like family. The regular customers knew her name, knew how she liked her coffee, asked about her classes. Could she really walk away from that security for something so unknown? A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Joe holding a bag that smelled suspiciously like his famous apple pie. "Thought you might need some brain food," he said as she let him in. He eyed the papers on her table. "Still deciding, huh?" Lily sighed, taking the bag. "Is it that obvious?" "Kid, I've known you for 6 years. You overthink everything." Joe settled onto her couch, his large frame making it look even smaller than it was. "Want to talk it through?" Lily pulled out plates for the pie. "What if it's a mistake? What if I'm not qualified? I haven't even graduated yet." Joe accepted a plate of pie with a nod of thanks. Robert Thornton didn't get where he is by making bad business decisions. "If he thinks you're the right person for the job, you probably are. But why me?" Lily pressed. "Just because I was nice to his mom? That's not a qualification." "No," Joe agreed, "but your work ethic is, your intelligence is, your compassion is." He took a bite of pie before continuing. "Look, I've had hundreds of employees over the years. Most are forgettable. They come in, do the minimum, collect their pay, move on. But once in a while, someone special comes along. Someone who puts their whole heart into everything they do, even if it's just refilling coffee cups." He pointed his fork at Lily. "That's you." Lily felt her eyes sting. "You're just saying that because you want me to be happy." "I'm saying it because it's true. And because sometimes we're the last ones to see our own worth." Joe set his plate down and leaned forward. "You've been treading water for 6 years, Lily. Keeping your head above the surface but never really swimming forward. Maybe it's time to start swimming." His words settled over her like a warm blanket. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to stop just surviving and start living. That evening, she called the number Robert had given her and accepted his dinner invitation for Saturday night. She hadn't made her final decision about the job, but she was ready to explore the possibility. Saturday arrived with uncharacteristic sunshine for late autumn. Lily spent an hour deciding what to wear, finally settling on her one good dress, a simple navy blue number she'd bought on clearance for a cousin's wedding 2 years ago. She paired it with her nicest flats and a cardigan, wishing she had something more impressive, but knowing this was the best she could do. Robert had offered to send a car for her, but Lily had declined, preferring to take the bus. Now standing outside his home, a stunning 2-story house in the city's most expensive neighborhood, she almost regretted that decision. The house was intimidating with its manicured lawn, stone facade, and large windows glowing with warm light. Before she could ring the bell, the door opened, revealing Helen. The elderly woman looked different than she had at the diner. Her silver hair was styled, her clothes clearly expensive, her posture straighter, but her warm smile was exactly the same. "There you are," Helen exclaimed, reaching for Lily's hands. I've been watching for you through the window. Come in, come in." Lily stepped into a foyer that was larger than her entire apartment. Original artwork adorned the walls and a crystal chandelier hung overhead. Despite the obvious wealth, the house felt welcoming. There were family photos, comfortable-looking furniture, books stacked on side tables. "Robert's in the kitchen," Helen said, still holding Lily's hand. "He insists on cooking for us himself. Says his chef deserves a night off, but really he just loves to show off his pasta sauce." As if on cue, Robert appeared in a doorway, wearing jeans and a casual button-down with an apron tied around his waist. The transformation from corporate CEO to home cook made Lily smile. "Lily, you're here." He wiped his hands on his apron. "Dinner's almost ready. Can I get you something to drink? Wine, water, Mom's favorite gin and tonic?" "Water is fine," Lily said, following them into a spacious living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden. As Robert went to get drinks, Helen patted the couch beside her. "Sit, dear. Tell me how you've been." The conversation flowed easily as they waited for dinner. Helen was curious about Lily's studies, her childhood, her dreams for the future. She listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions. When Robert called them to the dining room, Lily realized an hour had passed in what felt like minutes. Dinner was served in a formal dining room with a table that could seat 12, though Robert had arranged their 3-place settings close together at one end. The pasta was delicious, and as they ate, Robert shared stories about growing up with a teacher for a mother. She graded papers at every sports event I ever played in, he recalled with a laugh. My friends thought it was weird, but now I realize how hard she worked to be everywhere at once. Helen rolled her eyes affectionately. It was baseball. 9 innings of watching boys stand around. The papers kept me awake. Their easy banter revealed a close relationship, one built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Lily found herself relaxing, the intimidation of their wealth fading as their humanity shone through. After dinner, as Robert cleared the plates despite Lily's offers to help, Helen reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I have something for you," she said, sliding it across the table. Lily hesitated. "Helen, you've already given me so much with the bracelet. You don't need to." "It's not a gift," Helen interrupted gently. "It's a repayment." She pushed the envelope closer. "Please." Curious, Lily opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $7.31, the exact cost of the soup, tax included. "I told you I always pay my debts," Helen said with a twinkle in her eye. "I'm just a bit late with this one." Lily stared at the check, then began to laugh. The absurdity of it, a check for such a small amount from a woman who lived in this house, struck her as wonderfully funny. Helen joined in, her laughter like wind chimes. When Robert returned, he found them giggling like old friends. "What did I miss?" "Your mother is paying me back for the soup," Lily explained, holding up the check. Robert shook his head, smiling. "Mom has always believed that debts should be repaid no matter how small." His expression grew more serious. "Speaking of which, have you had a chance to think about our offer?" The laughter faded, and Lily took a deep breath. "I have, and I'd like to accept." "If the offer still stands," Helen clapped her hands together.
"Wonderful."
"Robert, isn't that wonderful?" Robert's smile was warm. "It is. Welcome to the team, Lily." Later, as they shared dessert, a chocolate cake that Robert admitted he had not made himself, they discussed the details. Lily would start part-time the following week, working around her class schedule. After graduation, she would transition to full-time with additional responsibilities. "There's one more thing," Robert said as they finished their cake. "Mom and I have been talking about a new initiative for the foundation, something inspired by your kindness," Helen nodded. "We want to create a fund for emergency assistance. Small grants for people who find themselves temporarily unable to meet basic needs. A meal, a night's lodging, a tank of gas to get to work. We're calling it the Dignity Fund," Robert explained. "The idea is to help people bridge small financial gaps without having to sacrifice their pride. We'd like you to help develop it." Lily thought about Helen at the diner, counting coins with trembling hands, about her own struggle to pay bills each month, about how a small amount, $7.31, could sometimes feel like an insurmountable obstacle. "I'd be honored," she said softly. 6 months later, Lily stood at a podium in a community center downtown. Behind her, a banner proclaimed the launch of the Thornton Foundation's Dignity Fund. Before her sat an audience of local business owners, social workers, and community leaders. "Sometimes the smallest obstacles can feel like the largest mountains," she told them. "A few dollars for a meal, bus fare to a job interview, a prescription copay. These small gaps in resources can cascade into major crises for people already struggling." She glanced to her left, where Helen sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Robert stood at the back of the room, giving her an encouraging thumbs up. The Dignity Fund aims to bridge those gaps with small grants distributed through local businesses and organizations. Lily gestured to the business owners in the audience. Participating partners will have the ability to approve small grants on the spot. No lengthy application process, no waiting period. Just immediate help when it's needed most. As she continued her presentation, Lily felt a profound sense of rightness. Her new office at Thornton Developments had a view of the river. Her student loans were paid off. She had moved to a safer apartment with reliable heating, all tangible improvements in her life. But the most significant change wasn't material. It was the knowledge that her work now directly helped others facing the same struggles she had known. Every day she used her experience to make systems more compassionate, more accessible, more human. After the presentation, as guests mingled over refreshments, Helen approached with a plate of cookies. "These reminded me of you," she said, offering Lily one shaped like a soup bowl. Lily laughed, accepting the cookie. "You're never going to let me forget that soup, are you?" "Never," Helen agreed. "That soup changed my life too, you know." reminded me that there's still kindness in the world. That's worth remembering. As they stood together, watching Robert chat with a group of business owners who were signing up for the Dignity Fund program, Lily thought about the strange path that had led her here, how one small decision, to pay for a stranger's meal, had rippled outward in ways she could never have imagined. She fingered the soup bowl charm on her bracelet, now joined by a second charm, a small key that Robert and Helen had given her when she graduated with honors last month. For unlocking your future, Helen had said as she fastened it to the bracelet, and for helping others unlock theirs. Outside the community center windows, the city continued its daily rhythm. Somewhere, perhaps in a diner much like Joe's, another small act of kindness was taking place. Another ripple was beginning. Another life, or maybe many lives, would change as a result. Lily smiled at the thought. $7.31 had seemed so insignificant 6 months ago. Now she understood what Helen had written in her note. Sometimes the smallest kindnesses create the biggest ripples.